I just finished chapter 23 of The Mandalorian, The Spies. My eyes are still wet. Like the ending of this episode, twice during this episode, I got tears in my eyes. Like this is a gut-wrenching, emotionally jam-packed, action-packed best episode of the season. Holy smokes. Like I can't even begin, just and the longest. I think the longest episode of the season. We finally got like an actual like really long chunk of an episode coming in at 50 minutes plus with the credits. So just tons of stuff happening here. Um, we're gonna talk about all the things, including how I was and why I was reduced to tears twice, including at the ending because oh my god. But again, I don't spoil things here, but I do spoil things after the intro. So here's my warning: if you don't want things spoiled, don't watch. Go away, see the episode, come back, then watch my review. Otherwise, you're going to find everything ruined for yourself because I spoil all the things we're talking about the whole episode. It's really nice to go from the cameo driven episode the last week, which had some storyline to it, but overall it was kind of like meh, to this because this is the Mandalorian firing on all cylinders. So if you want to talk about the episode, get ready because we're going to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, and let me get into my show notes here because, oh my goodness. Um, we're off on the seedy underbelly of Coruscant at the beginning here with the character Elia looking over her shoulder, skulking up to no good. The music is really awesome here, and she meets with a probe droid, does her little code, and boom, we get the Moff Gideon reveal, which we knew was coming because he's at Star Wars Celebration, and also, we find out last episode that he was not killed; he was somehow rescued, and there was Beskar armor in the shuttle. Now we know why, because by the end of this, we get the reveal of yeah, all this other stuff. Um, it's all about with him, Navarro, and the Mandalorians led by Bo-Katan and Din Djarin. He's pissed off about him, and he, wants to, take out the Mandalorians. Meanwhile, we then see him walking down this chamber with all the clone tanks, and he gets into this room with a bunch of halos of these other Imperial officers, and we meet not only a cast of supporting characters who are all part of the new order that's coming in the pipeline, but more importantly, Captain Pelion, who is all a part of Grand, Admiral Thrawn's return. And this whole section here is about the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn and Project Necromancer and Gideon. Like, where is Thrawn? If you keep mentioning him, but I don't see him, maybe we need some new leadership. And there's some back and forth here between all the various, people here who are part of the old empire. Everybody's kind of complaining about, you know, the you know they don't want the attention of the New Republic because they need time to resurface again and gather their resources. Gideon's complaining about Paleon robbing all the resources while Thrawn is nowhere to be seen, while the others are complaining about Gideon using his resources to protect against these so-called assassinations attempts. But then he drops the Mandalorian threat and how they're going to come back and try to retake Mandalore. And they all agree that the resurgence of the Mandalorians is going to hamper our efforts. We have to stamp them out. So we know that we're leading towards that big confrontation now. Back to Navarro, here comes the Mandalorian fleet, which is really awesome. There's a little tense kind of meeting here between the various tribes of Mandalorians, but it all comes together at the end. But more importantly is the little Furby uh, guys have repaired the IG-11 unit, only it's called IG-12 now. No memory core, but they installed a little cockpit, which is awesome because Grogu gets to run this thing around. And he drops in it, into the cockpit, and he's playing around with the droid, and Din is like, no, you're not going to do it. I'm not going to let you drive this. And suddenly, so there's a speech button for like no, yes, no, yes. And so Grogu starts going, every time Din says, I'm not going to let you use it, he goes, no, you're going to give it back. No. What do you think you're doing? You can't go around. Yes, I can. And so there's this whole no, no, yes, yes, no, yes. And then he shoves Din Djarin aside and starts running around his little droid body. And then they see him in the streets and he's like, yes, 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 yes. And then they get to the market and he's like stealing fruit. And it's just really, really cute and really, really funny. Meanwhile, Bo-Katan is laying out the dangers of Mandalore. We need to move the fleet there, scout the planet, establish a perimeter, bring the others down. She needs volunteers. Of course, she gets the volunteers that she wants. They arrive, time to start exploring, and in the midst of all of this, they meet other Mandalorians on the surface who are in really bad conditions, really bad shape, but they've survived. Like there's more Mandalorians than they thought, and they have this like wreck of a, kind of land-based skiff vessel. They have dinner, they're talking, and she gives the backstory and apologizes to the refugees and talks about how, I did surrender. The Night of a Thousand Tears, I surrendered to Moff Gideon in exchange for he was supposed to spare all the cities, and that's how he got the dark saber. I didn't trust him; it was the only chance to save our people. But then he, betrayed us, and I was helpless to resist the purge of Mandalore. And there's questions on all sides of the table. The remnants want to know who the children of the Watch are, and the armorer says, "Well, we're from over here," and they're like, "Wait a second, are you Death Watch?" And they're like, "No, no, no, Death Watch is gone." Etc. But that's a very good question because Death Watch was a terrorist organization who did some really bad shit. So at the end of this, Bo-Katan goes away from the meeting. She's looking out over the landscape. She's stressed about the suffering and divided factions and how it's important to reunite, but she's doubting that she has the ability to do that. The blade is the only thing holding people together at the moment. But then Din Djarin gives this speech about honor, character, loyalty. These are the reasons I serve you, Lady Kryze. Your song is not yet written. I will serve you until it is. And this was the first where I got all emotional and got a little teary eyed because I was like, oh my God, like this is the Mandalores. The Mandalorians are coming back, and Bo-Katan, because as cool as Pedro Pascal's character is, Din Djarin's characters, the history of the Mandalorians. Bo-Katan, if you've never watched the Clone Wars, if you've never watched Rebels, if you've never watched any of these you have to watch these shows to understand. Like I see so many people who are like, "Oh, Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, they're just making shit up with the Mandalorian and it doesn't make sense and blah blah blah." You don't know what you're talking about. This shit has been in the works for like 15 years. Like the Bo-Katan character and everything that's happened to Mandalore was a part of the Clone Wars series. This has all been a part of this huge story arc for more than a decade. You are off your rocker if you think that this is stuff that they're just inventing because of Disney. Like this has all been in the works for a very long time. So it's really cool stuff here. Um, Meanwhile, we get to see things starting to get split up here, and I kind of suspected that something was going to happen, and then it definitely we got yeah, shit hit the fan. So the armorer says she's going to take remnants, the really, damaged remnants, the people who are really sick and ill who were living on the surface. She's going to take those off planet back to the fleet up above. Meanwhile, the strongest are going to follow Bo-Katan and the others to the forge. So they're riding through the mountains, riding through the desert on this skiff. Tensions are heightening. There's like this chessboard game being played, and you've got Paz and the other guy whose name I forget off the top of my head, Bo-Katan's buddy, get into a brawl because of this game, and it's the Mandalorian way, fighting. But eventually, Grogu separates him in his robot body, and then they get attacked by this giant creature in the desert. They have to abandon ship, but they end up in the caverns beneath where they find the forge, which is the once beating heart of their civilization. And meanwhile, the scenes are going on. You're also seeing the armor break out of the atmosphere and into space. Meanwhile, they're down in the forge area looking around and they hear jetpacks. Someone's flying in, only it's not Mandalorians. It's Imperials wearing Bexar armor. So this is where we know now, or at least we get a glimpse of what Moff Gideon was up to, because that Bexar armor that was left in the shuttle was because of these guys. Like, that was part of this. There's this whole epic fight scene between the stormtroopers in the armor and everything else. And then they decide that we got to move deeper into the caverns and everything. And as they move in, they find an Imperial base. And it's like, what is this place? How did this get here? What's going on? And as this happened, a blast door comes down and separates Din Djarin from the rest of the Mandalorians. Boom! It's an ambush. Here's Moff Gideon in a freaking suit of Bexar Dark Trooper power armor. Oh my God! So they've got Din Djarin, and he gives this speech about time to take your fleet off the board, but we still have the element of surprise. And they drag Din Djarin away, and he gives this speech to Bo-Katan about how you should just sacrifice yourself, give up the dark saber now and tell these people to go away. And she's like, "Screw you!" So they're in between two blast doors like this, and she runs to the other blast door and starts cutting a hole through with the dark saber for her people to escape. Meanwhile, Moff Gideon brings the blast door up on the other side and tells his troopers to kill them all. And Paz Vizsla covers the exit. I'm getting emotional again. covers the exit while they're all escaping. Bo-Katan goes back to try to rescue him, and he shuts the other blast door in her face and says, "I'm no, this is the way." Like he's like, "There's too many of them. I will hold the line." And she's like, "No, come with me. Don't sacrifice yourself." And he shuts the door and he's like, "This is the way." And I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm crying again." I'm like emotionally getting into it again because I literally just finished the episode like less than 10 minutes ago. And so Paz Vizsla sacrifices himself, and the way he dies, like at the hands of these three guys in the red Imperial armor, like the super dudes with the shock sticks, and just but he covers their escape, and Bo-Katan gets everybody out. So it's like, oh my god, the way they left us hanging at the end of this episode, because we also still haven't seen, like the last scene of the armor was her breaking through the cloud cover and getting to the fleet. But they're, Moff Gideon just gave the order, so at the beginning of the next episode they're going to get attacked above. The fleet's going to get attacked. Meanwhile, they've got Din Djarin, and this everybody's separated, and it's chaos. So we've only got one episode left, and I'm just like, oh my god, like where are we going for this final episode? Like how is this going to end? Like you better kill Moff Gideon, like because we already know that the big threat that's coming is going to be Grand Admiral Thrawn. We just got the reveal in the Ahsoka trailer. That's coming in August, which is that's going to be the tie-in. We already know because they're already talking about it, but it's going to be the tie-in to this show. And that the Mandalorian is going to be a part of that show, and it'll bridge the gap between this season and the next season of the Mandalorian. I just don't know what's going to happen with Mandalore. Are they going to retake the planet? Are we going to finally take care of Moff Gideon? I am on the edge of my freaking seat here, guys. What an episode. You got me. Like, heart pumping, tears, edge of my seat, action, emotions. What an episode. 500 out of 10. Like, I cannot give this episode enough positive ratings. This was the best episode of the season. Probably one of the best episodes, not probably, definitely one of the best episodes of the entire Mandalorian show so far. Especially looking at how the storylines are all coming together from all the way back in the Clone Wars and the history of Bo-Katan and the Mandalorian people and everything that's come before. This is really brilliant storytelling. I don't see how even the haters can criticize this because it's so good. I'm sure there are some people out there who are gonna be like, "No, it's Disney and I hate Disney Star Wars." Get out of here. This was a great episode. Loved it. If you also loved it, let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Support if you can. Super chats, super thanks, memberships, the Patreon page. Thanks to everybody for helping me do this full time. I appreciate it. We're gonna go away from this and try to have an emotional recovery session this morning because I'm feeling drained after this episode, truly. But it was so good. I can't wait. I can't wait for next week. Season finale. Till then, everybody, may the force be with you.